Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 591. My opponent kicked off with e4, and I played e6, the French defense. We get kind of a normal position after d4, d5. My opponent chooses to go with e5, the advanced variation. You can see it's the third choice on the list after the two knight moves, knight c3 or knight d2. Now the advanced variation is playable, but it's a little bit tricky, and I think it's often misplayed. So for players who automatically play the advanced variation against the French, you should maybe spend a little time studying it or reconsider your choice. Anyway, I play c5, which is the main move, and he goes c3. So far so good. Now knight c6. I mean, Black really has a simple strategy against this early advance of just trying to put pressure on the d4 pawn, and White should just defend it. You've got to defend for a while as White. So knight f3 makes some sense here, followed by say bishop e2 and castling. That would be a reasonable way to play this. This move bishop b5 is just a bad move. You see it's way down on the list of moves. Yeah, there's no games in the database with that played. The reason is that this is a good piece in the French defense. Look at this pawn structure. It's all the pawns on dark squares. So you want to keep this bishop. You don't want to trade it off for a knight. And in particular, if I can get my bishop to d7 and trade this bishop for that bishop, I get rid of my bad bishop. Black's bad bishop is traded for White's good bishop. So this is all good for Black. I looked at this with the chess engine, and after this bishop b5 move, the engine gives advantage to Black. so already, not only has White given up the opening advantage, but he's given the advantage to Black. So anyway, since this was a short game, we can take a look at how the French defense, the advanced variation, ought to be played. So knight to f3, and I would typically continue with queen b6. Bishop d7 also is an idea, just starting that bishop on its journey to a more useful square. Queen b6, though, is a nice simple way to play, just continuing to pressurize the d4 pawn. But notice that it's adequately defended at the moment with the queen and the knight. So White doesn't have to react right away. He could play bishop e2, that's the second choice here, and just go for the castle. I would probably trade here and then develop my knight. I would probably go to e7 rather than to h6. So knight on h6, there's always this threat of it getting traded off. And then White can castle here or play b3. Playing b3 would allow this dark squared bishop to develop. Yep. Anyway, that's one way it might go. The other way to play it is, and the top choice, is with a3, and this is kind of an interesting idea. White plays a3, and then once again I would move my knight to e7 rather than go to h6. But then b4 is the idea of a3, just putting some pressure on this pawn and forcing it to decide, and basically closing off the queen side where Black is hoping to get some activity. And if the queen side closes, then White can play on the king side where White has more influence due to this pawn structure. So that's a reasonable way to play. Black would probably take at this point. So Black would at least have an open c file. So anyway, those are both ways the game might go after if instead of bishop b5, if something else had been played, knight f3, if the main 9 had been played. So with the game went bishop b5, I went queen b6, which is okay, and we're just out of the opening book. I did check this out with a chess engine, and Black is doing fine through all of these parts. There's one interesting point here. After the exchange, which wasn't forced, he's probably better off keeping that bishop. It's actually better for me to take with the pawn rather than taking with the queen. And there's two ideas here. One is that I open up the b file and get some pressure on the b file with the rook and queen. And the second thing is that I get an auxiliary or a redundant c pawn. So now I can trade off the c pawn, and when he takes back, I can push the second c pawn forward and continue to undermine the center. So that's the best way for Black to play this position. Take with the pawn here. So anyway, I took with the queen. He developed his knight finally. I go knight e7, castles. So we get some normal moves here, knight here. But knight to g5 is kind of a strange move. It's coming out prematurely, and I can chase it back. These targets are not, you always have to worry about potential sacrifices when you try and kick the knight, but the sacrifices don't work in this case. So I played h6, kicking the knight, and he didn't move the knight, but he played the move queen h5, trying to pin that pawn. So if you want to take a second to think about this, what's wrong with the move queen to h5? I'll draw the arrow to show it. Queen to h5. What's wrong with that move? Okay, the problem with this move is that it doesn't pin the pawn. The knight here is defending the rook. You got to pay attention to the details. So obviously this move, queen h5, was played as part of a pattern. You see this a lot, knight here, queen here. But of course that only works if this rook is undefended. And I could just take that knight. And for some reason, I was so surprised by this move I didn't spot it until a moment later. I played the move bishop e7 to chase the knight away. So White has survived that mistake to continue to play, but the game really should have ended right there. Anyway, I go ahead and castle, and we get a position which is about even, but maybe black is a little bit better. He takes. Oh, I decide to take here. He takes back with the pawn. Actually, this is one of those rare cases where White can take back with the knight and get a decent game here. So knight takes d4 is interesting because it comes with tempo. And if I drop my queen back to try and put pressure on the e-pawn, that's the usual problem with taking with a piece here, is this e-pawn becomes weak. But he's gotten the knight out of the way with tempo, and now he can play the move f4 to defend the e-pawn, and this is good. A good position for, well, it's even. He's solved some of his problems here, and so black is no longer better. This is about an even game. So that would have been an interesting way to play. He took back with the pawn, and black keeps some slight edge. I play b6 so I can open up a line for my bishop. He went rook e1. I went bishop to a6. So all this is okay. He goes knight to b3. I'm not sure this move does a whole lot. The knight is not looking at a lot of great squares here. So I play an unusual move here, bishop d3. The thing is, this slight squared bishop is not the best piece in this structure. It's blocked in by the pawns. So if I can activate it, even in a peculiar fashion like this, it's probably good for black. And the engine did confirm this is an okay move. Maybe not the best move here, but at least it gets the bishop out doing something active. Okay, bishop to e3 was played. Also not a great move. He's got a bunch of pieces defending this pawn, which is not under attack. And in fact, this bishop is kind of blocked in here. But, well, it does get it off the back rank, so we can bring a rook to the c-file. And there may be ideas later of a sacrifice on h6. So it's not a horrible move, but you have to wonder about that overprotection of d4 there. Let's see, I went with bishop e4, putting some pressure on this knight and maybe giving myself the option of trading my light squared bishop for that knight. I went knight bd2, and I went bishop to b4 here. So I think this move was a mistake. The engine says that in this position, what White can do is throw in this rook to c1 move, harassing my queen, and then take this, and this position is about equal. So I've once again given up my advantage if White plays precisely, but he has to unpin the knight with that rook move and then take, and this is okay. This knight has some squares to go to. I guess this was the suggestion of the chess engine, putting pressure on this knight, and I don't have any great way to defend it, so we end up with this kind of position, and this is pretty equal. It looks like maybe I have some trouble with my pawns here, but I have enough activity, and I have the better bishop, so about equal. And that would be the best way for White to play. A3 is not bad either. It kicks my bishop and and forces me to make a choice. And I didn't want to give up my good bishop, so I decided to take with my light squared bishop first. And I noticed that when I take the knight, I'm hitting his queen. So he doesn't have time to take my bishop. He's got to respond to that threat first, probably taking back with the queen is the best move, and then I have time to save my dark squared bishop. So that's the way I played it. I took here, and he just ignored the threat to his queen and took my bishop, and I took his queen, and he resigned. So that's how the game ended. If let's see, if he takes with a knight, then I will grab the rook, so that wins the exchange. If he takes with the pawn, it kind of messes up his king side. So queen takes is the best move here, and this position is okay for white. I would think about just retreating my bishop here, but actually the chess engine points out the best way to play is to just trade off that knight and try and steer for an end game where I have or a middle game, late middle game, where I have a good knight against a bad bishop. And that's a theme that occurs in a lot of French defenses. You often can get this good knight versus bad bishop. And you can maneuver this knight to a better square. You go to h4 with tempo and then come around to f5 and put some pressure on white's center. And just a slight edge to black. So a long game would ensue from here. But I could go forward with the plan of just trading queens and heading for the endgame and hoping to have a better minor piece in the endgame. So that would give me something to play for. But anyway, after he took the bishop, then it was all over. And he resigned at this point. Okay, so a short game, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon.